Superheroes are overrated. The DC Universe's real powerhouses? It's villains. From universe-devouring entities like the Anti-Monitor to twisted reflections of heroism like the Batman who laughs. These antagonists are forces of nature, embodiments of chaos, and sometimes even reflections of our own darkest impulses. This android, known as Amazo, was created by the brilliant but twisted Professor Evo with a single, terrifying purpose: to replicate the powers of any superhero it encounters.
It's called Amazo.
Imagine a being that can soar through the skies like Superman, wield the emerald energy of a Green Lantern ring, move at the blinding speed of the Flash, and possess the incredible strength of Wonder Woman, all at the same time. Amazo isn't just a simple copycat though. It possesses a sophisticated learning matrix that allows it to analyze and adapt to any new power it encounters, constantly evolving and becoming more dangerous. In one infamous encounter, Amazo single-handedly took on the entire Justice League, pushing Earth's greatest heroes to their absolute limits and showcasing the terrifying potential of its adaptive abilities. He can teleport across vast distances, manipulate matter at a molecular level, and even absorb energy attacks, turning their power against the heroes themselves. This potent combination of replicated abilities and rapid adaptation makes Amazo a near unbeatable foe, a constant threat lurking in the shadows, ready to unleash the combined might of the Justice League and potentially even more against the world. Each encounter with Amazo forces heroes to rethink their strategies, knowing that whatever worked before might be completely useless the next time around. The potential for Amazo to evolve and master even more powers makes him a ticking time bomb, a walking arsenal of stolen abilities waiting to be unleashed. This skeletal scythe-wielding entity is the embodiment of death itself. Necron rules over the land of the unliving and commands the Black Lantern Corps, an army of undead beings powered by the Black Power Rings. He can resurrect the dead, control their minds, and drain the life force of the living. Necron has even been shown to imprison the Anti-Monitor and use him as a power source. This guy is basically a walking apocalypse, and even the most powerful heroes struggle to defeat him. This monstrous Kryptonian abomination is best known for being the only one to ever kill Superman. Doomsday is a nearly indestructible killing machine with incredible strength, durability, and a healing factor that makes Wolverine look like an amateur. He can adapt to overcome any attack, meaning he can only be killed once by the same method. This means he's a constantly evolving threat. Doomsday has even evolved to control Hellfire and drain the life force of those around him. Not only that, but Doomsday also has venomous claws. This guy is a force of nature, and his relentless drive for destruction makes him a constant threat to the DC Universe. This demonic entity is the father of Raven and one of the most powerful villains in the DC Universe. Trigon has conquered countless worlds and dimensions, and his power is virtually limitless.
Who shall rule? And who shall serve?
He can warp reality, control minds, teleport, and even manipulate matter. But here's the thing about Trigon: he's more than just a demon. He's a manifestation of evil itself. He's basically the embodiment of all the darkness and hatred in the universe. Trigon has even been shown to go toe-to-toe with Mr. Amexis PTLK, a fifth-dimensional imp with reality-warping powers. This guy is basically the devil incarnate, and his evil influence is a constant threat to the heroes of the DC Universe. This cosmic entity is a destroyer of universes, responsible for the crisis on infinite Earths. The Anti-Monitor possesses nearly limitless energy manipulation, vast physical strength, and the ability to reshape reality on a multiversal scale. He can absorb entire universes to increase his power, making him an existential threat to all of existence. Even Darkseid fears the Anti-Monitor's destructive potential. This guy is a force of cosmic annihilation, and his presence spells doom for any universe he sets his sights on. So there you have it, 5 of the most powerful and terrifying villains in the DC Universe. But the chaos doesn't stop there. We've only scratched the surface of the nightmares the DCU has to offer. Get ready, because the next half of our countdown delves into even more chilling territory, showcasing villains whose intelligence and ambition rival even their immense power. Now prepare for a different kind of threat, one that doesn't rely on brute force, but on cold, calculated intellect. This super intelligent android is obsessed with collecting knowledge and preserving civilizations, even if it means destroying them in the process. Brainiac travels the universe in his iconic skull-shaped spaceship, shrinking cities and bottling them up to add to his collection. He possesses a 12th level intellect, advanced technology, and a vast array of powers, including telekinesis, telepathy, and force field generation. Brainiac has been a thorn in the side of Superman and the Justice League for years, and his cold, calculating logic makes him a truly formidable opponent. This fifth-dimensional imp may seem like a harmless prankster, but he possesses reality-warping powers that make him one of the most powerful beings in the DC universe. Mr. Mexiztlk can do almost anything he can imagine, from turning people into animals to erasing entire cities from existence. He once even turned the entire world into a cartoon. And get this, he's actually aware of being a fictional character. Talk about breaking the fourth wall. The only way to stop him is to trick him into saying his name backward, which sends him back to the fifth dimension. But even then, he always finds a way to return and cause more chaos. Did I mention he can control a subway train with a video game joystick? This guy is a walking reality bender, and his unpredictable nature makes him a constant source of chaos in the DC universe. The ruler of Apocalypse, Darkseid is a godlike being with immense power and a thirst for universal domination. He possesses superhuman strength, durability, and the ability to manipulate energy on a cosmic scale. His Omega beams can erase anything they touch, and his Omega Sanction can trap victims in an endless cycle of torment. Imagine being trapped in a never-ending loop of terrible lives, each one worse than the last, with no escape. That's the Omega Sanction. Darkseid is also a master strategist and manipulator, always scheming to conquer the universe and enslave all free will. This guy is basically the ultimate evil overlord, and his presence casts a shadow over the entire DC universe. This nightmarish fusion of Batman and the Joker is a terrifying force of chaos and destruction. He possesses Batman's tactical genius and the Joker's nihilistic insanity, making him a truly unpredictable and dangerous foe. The Batman who laughs has been shown to manipulate and defeat some of the most powerful beings in the DC universe, including Perpetua herself. He's so powerful, he can even turn Robins into Joker-like monsters and destroy multiple universes. He even gained the powers of Dr. Manhattan, making him a near-omnipotent threat. This guy is a walking nightmare, and his presence brings terror and despair to the DC universe. This cosmic entity isn't just powerful, he's a force of nature on a multiversal scale. The Anti-Monitor is responsible for the Crisis on Infinite Earths, an event that nearly wiped out all of existence. He can absorb the energy of entire universes, growing stronger with every world he consumes. He's got antimatter manipulation powers that can break down anything in his path, and he can even travel through dimensions and alter reality itself. This guy is the ultimate cosmic destroyer, and his very existence threatens the stability of the multiverse. Within this altered landscape emerges the absolute Joker, a chillingly distinct iteration of the Clown Prince of Crime. This version is not defined by manic laughter or a history intrinsically tied to Batman's creation. Instead, he is a billionaire industrialist who has never been heard to laugh, earning him the sardonic moniker. His power stems from unimaginable wealth and a worldly training that has honed him into a formidable force, inverting the traditional power dynamic with a Batman who lacks the familiar Wayne fortune. Furthermore, the absolute Joker has already established himself as a psychopathic supervillain, operating with a strategic mind and engaging in acts of profound depravity, such as the horrifying consumption of infant life force. This report delves into the 10 paramount reasons why the absolute Joker stands as the ultimate villain within the absolute Batman universe, a figure whose unique characteristics and terrifying methods perfectly embody the dark and inverted nature of this reality. The dynamic between Batman and his rogues gallery has long been defined by the concept of duality, with many of his adversaries serving as dark reflections of the Caped Crusader himself. The relationship between Batman and the Joker, in particular, has often been portrayed as a twisted form of yin and yang, where their contrasting moral codes and motivations are intrinsically linked. Numerous interpretations have even explored the notion that the Joker and Batman are two sides of the same coin, separated only by a single bad day. In the Absolute Universe, this mirroring takes a fascinating and inverted turn. The Absolute Batman is not the billionaire heir familiar to most. Instead, he is a working-class hero, a product of Gotham's harsh streets. Growing up in the notorious crime alley, Bruce Wayne in this reality never knew the privilege of the Wayne fortune. His father, a high school teacher, tragically fell victim to a mass shooting, leaving a young Bruce without the traditional support system. This Batman is defined by his resourcefulness and a practical, engineering-oriented mind, focused on enacting societal change through his actions. His heroism is born not of inherited wealth, but of a deep-seated desire to improve the city he calls home. Conversely, Essentially, the absolute Joker stands as a towering figure of immense wealth, a billionaire industrialist whose influence stretches across the globe. Ranking among the wealthiest individuals on the planet, his financial power dwarfs even the most extravagant depictions of the traditional Joker's resources. This stark reversal of their economic statuses immediately establishes a compelling dichotomy where the Joker now occupies the position of power and influence that Batman traditionally holds. This inversion leads to the intriguing concept of the absolute Joker as a twisted Bruce Wayne. He represents a potential dark path for Bruce, a vision of what he could have become if he had succumbed to the allure of wealth and control rather than dedicating himself to justice. The absolute Joker embodies the corrupting potential of unchecked power, using his vast fortune to fuel unimaginable cruelty, standing in stark opposition to the working-class hero striving to save Gotham. This evil twin dynamic adds a profound personal and philosophical layer to their inevitable conflict, making the absolute Joker a uniquely compelling and ultimate villain within this inverted reality. In the absolute universe, the Joker's power is not rooted in madness or anarchy, but in a staggering level of wealth, positioning him as one of the most affluent individuals on the planet. Ranking within the top 0.005% of the world's richest, his fortune eclipses even the vast resources occasionally attributed to the traditional Joker. This unprecedented financial might grants him an unparalleled level of influence and reach. His ownership of a semiconductor manufacturing plant, a global enterprise akin to Philips, serves as a tangible symbol of his immense fortune and legitimate business dealings, providing a veneer of respectability that further complicates any attempts to dismantle his operations. This extraordinary wealth allows the absolute Joker to operate on a truly global scale, exerting influence far beyond the confines of Gotham City. His brief appearance at the end of Absolute Batman #1 depicts him overseeing his distant manufacturing plant, highlighting his ability to manage vast enterprises across continents. This global reach extends to his clandestine activities within Gotham, where he secretly funds and orchestrates the chaos unleashed by gangs like the Party Animals, demonstrating his capacity to manipulate events from afar without directly involving himself. This ability to orchestrate destruction on a grand scale, coupled with his legitimate business empire, makes him a far more systemic and challenging threat than the traditional Joker. Furthermore, his immense wealth presents a significant obstacle to the absolute Batman, potentially allowing him to buy his way out of anything. Unlike the traditional dynamic where Batman's financial resources often provide him with an edge, the absolute Joker's fortune could enable him to evade legal repercussions, fund sophisticated defenses, and generally operate with a level of impunity that his traditional counterpart never possessed. This forces the less affluent absolute Batman to rely on his intellect, physical prowess, and the loyalty of his allies, creating a compelling underdog narrative where ingenuity must triumph over overwhelming financial power. The contrast with the traditional Joker, whose resources typically derive from criminal activities and are often fleeting and unstable, further underscores the unique challenge posed by the absolute Joker's seemingly limitless wealth. A defining characteristic that immediately distinguishes the absolute Joker from his myriad counterparts is his complete and utter silence. He never laughs. This deliberate departure from the traditional Joker's maniacal laughter, a sound synonymous with chaos and terror, establishes the absolute Joker as a fundamentally different kind of menace. His lack of mirth is so pronounced that it has ironically earned him the moniker the Joker, a sarcastic acknowledgement of his sinister nature despite the absence of his trademark joviality. This silence speaks volumes about his psychological state and the nature of his villainy. The absence of laughter contributes to a chillingly different kind of terror, a cold, calculated, and arguably more unsettling presence. It suggests a level of control and deliberate intent that is perhaps more disturbing than the traditional Joker's often impulsive and theatrical outbursts. Without the outward expression of manic glee, the absolute Joker's actions take on a more sinister and purposeful quality. His silence might indicate a profound lack of empathy, a complete absence of joy, even in inflicting suffering, making him seem less human and more akin to an inexorable force of nature. This stands in stark contrast to the traditional Joker, whose maniacal laughter has become an iconic element of his persona. This laughter often accompanies his violent acts, serving as a disturbing punctuation mark to his madness and a chilling reminder of his warped sense of humor. While unsettling, this laughter also carries an element of theatricality, a performative aspect to his insanity. The absolute Joker Joker's silence, however, implies a deeper, perhaps even sociopathic detachment. His terror is not broadcast through unsettling sounds, but emanates from his cold, unwavering demeanor and the horrifying implications of his calculated actions. This silent menace can be perceived as even more terrifying, hinting at a level of profound and unwavering evil that lies beneath the surface. The absolute Joker distinguishes himself not only through his immense wealth and chilling silence, but also through his more strategic and indirect approach to villainy. Unlike the traditional Joker, who often takes center stage in his chaotic schemes, the absolute Joker appears to operate from behind the scenes, subtly influencing events and orchestrating chaos through other villains. He has yet to directly unleash widespread mayhem upon Gotham, seemingly preferring to allow other malevolent forces to pave the way for his ultimate plans. This suggests a calculated and patient approach, prioritizing long-term objectives over the immediate, impulsive acts of chaos that often characterize his traditional counterpart. His connection to Black Mask and the party animals in the initial story arc of Absolute Batman provides a clear example of this manipulative strategy. The Absolute Joker secretly funds this gang of anarchists, utilizing their destructive tendencies to sow discord and weaken Gotham's foundations. Black Mask's own nihilistic ideology and desire to see the city consumed by chaos align with the Joker's potential long-term goals, making him a useful pawn in a larger game. This demonstrates the Absolute Joker's ability to leverage other villains, exploiting their motivations and resources to further his own agenda without exposing himself directly, showcasing a higher level of strategic thinking than often seen in the traditional Joker. Furthermore, the chilling conclusion of the first arc sees the Absolute Joker commanding his manservant to summon Bane. This action strongly suggests a long-term plan involving a hierarchy of villains under his influence. Bane, with his formidable physical prowess and history of breaking Batman, represents a significant future threat that the Absolute Joker is strategically positioning. This indicates a grander scheme beyond the initial chaos orchestrated by the party animals, hinting at a more complex and dangerous plan for Gotham's future that involves the calculated deployment of various villainous elements. This contrasts sharply with the traditional Joker, who often prefers to work alone or engages in more direct and impulsive acts of chaos. While the traditional Joker has formed alliances, they are typically short-lived and prone to betrayal, driven by his own unpredictable nature and immediate desires. The Absolute Joker's more strategic and indirect manipulation of other villains marks a significant departure and elevates his status as an ultimate manipulator within this universe. Perhaps the most profoundly disturbing aspect of the Absolute Joker, and a key reason for his ultimate villain status, is the horrifying method he employs to sustain himself, revealed in the chilling conclusion of Absolute Batman number 6. This iteration of the Clown Prince of Crime is depicted as withered and cadaverous, his vitality seemingly dependent on the gruesome act of draining the life force from the infants. The imagery of babies attached to him, their life essence flowing into his own decrepit form, is described as the most sickening yet and absolutely demented, establishing a new benchmark for cruelty even within the Joker's already infamous history. This act transcends the typical violence and mayhem associated with the Joker, venturing into a realm of deeply unsettling and unnatural depravity. It establishes him as a villain willing to exploit the most innocent and vulnerable beings for his own selfish gain, a level of monstrousness that is difficult to fathom. The motivation behind this horrifying act appears to be purely self-serving, to restore his own fading vitality and prolong his existence. This pursuit of self-preservation at the cost of innocent lives underscores a profound lack of empathy and a chilling disregard for any semblance of morality, even by the Joker's standards. This motivation, devoid of any ideological justification or even a twisted sense of humor, is terrifying in its stark and selfish simplicity. This method of sustaining himself stands in stark contrast to the traditional Joker's crimes, which, while often heinous and causing mass suffering, rarely involve such a direct and personal act of life draining. While the traditional Joker has engaged in countless acts of murder, torture, and psychological torment, the systematic exploitation and consumption of infant life force for personal rejuvenation represents a uniquely disturbing form of cruelty not typically associated with the character. Even his most infamous acts, such as the murder of Jason Todd or the paralysis of Barbara Gordon, while undeniably horrific, stem from different motivations and employ different methods. This stark departure highlights the uniquely monstrous nature of the absolute Joker's methods, solidifying his position as an ultimate villain who redefines the very concept of cruelty within the absolute Batman universe. In the Absolute Universe, the dynamic between Batman and the Joker is further amplified by their diametrically opposed philosophies and goals. The Absolute Batman is portrayed as a more idealistic and grounded hero, driven by a desire to enact meaningful societal change within Gotham. He is depicted as a young man determined to rise above the challenges of his working-class background, using his ingenuity and physical prowess to combat the corruption that plagues the city. This Batman sees himself as a force for positive change, striving to build a better Gotham for its citizens. His core motivation is rooted in hope and a belief in the potential for improvement, even in the face of overwhelming darkness. Conversely, the traditional Joker is often characterized by a deeply nihilistic philosophy, believing in the inherent chaos and meaninglessness of existence. He views morality as a flimsy construct, a bad joke that crumbles under pressure, and believes that humanity is only ever one bad day away from descending into madness. His actions are frequently driven by a desire to expose this perceived truth, to introduce anarchy and upset the established order, pushing individuals to their breaking points to prove his cynical worldview. The Absolute Joker, potentially an evil Bruce Wayne figure, might embody a different facet of nihilism, one born not from societal rejection, but perhaps from a profound disillusionment with the trappings of wealth and power. His desire to tear down the established world, even though he sits atop its financial hierarchy, could stem from a jaded perspective on the emptiness of privilege and a desire to unleash chaos simply because he possesses the means to do so. This contrast sets the stage for a fundamental ideological clash. While Absolute Batman fights for a brighter future for Gotham, the Absolute Joker, whether driven by traditional nihilistic chaos or a more nuanced disillusionment, represents a force actively undermining that hope. His funding of destructive elements like the party animals and his parasitic draining of life force from the innocent symbolize a direct assault on the very ideals that drive Batman's heroic endeavors in this darker universe. A significant departure from many traditional Joker origin stories is the established fact that the Absolute Joker has already evolved into a psychopathic supervillain long before encountering the Absolute Batman. He is described as a generational billionaire and a deadly killer even before his formal emergence as the Joker, indicating a pre-existing history of villainy that is not directly tied to an encounter with the Dark Knight. This independence suggests a different set of motivations and a more self-contained origin for his malevolence. Furthermore, the Absolute Joker's formidable skills and global reach are attributed to his training with the League of Shadows assassins. He is said to have studied under and ultimately eliminated both Henri Ducard and the League itself, demonstrating a level of martial arts and strategic prowess that rivals, if not surpasses, that of Batman. This elite training provides a concrete explanation for his competence and influence, making him a physical and tactical match for Batman in a way that many traditional Joker iterations are not. This pre-existing psychopathy and specialized training suggests that the Absolute Joker's motivations are not solely a reaction to Batman's existence. Instead, they likely stem from his own established twisted psychology and potentially a deep-seated disillusionment with his life of privilege. His bitterness and desire to dismantle the established order might have been brewing long before Batman's emergence in Gotham. This independence from the traditional hero-villain creation narrative makes the Absolute Joker a more self-sufficient and potentially more unpredictable force of evil, driven by his own established darkness rather than solely by his relationship with Batman. In the Absolute Universe, the established power dynamic between Batman and the Joker is dramatically inverted, creating a unique and formidable challenge for the Dark Knight. A defining characteristic of the Absolute Batman is his lack of the traditional Wayne fortune, making him an underdog operating with limited resources. Growing up in the harsh realities of Crime Alley, this Bruce Wayne relies on his own ingenuity, engineering skills, and the support of a close circle of childhood friends, rather than vast financial backing. Conversely, the Absolute Joker is a figure of immense wealth and influence, a generational billionaire who possesses the kind of resources and technological advantages traditionally associated with Batman. The writer of Absolute Batman even teases that this Joker has the resources and the cave, who has the vehicles in this, further emphasizing the complete role reversal. This staggering power imbalance positions the Absolute Joker as a monumental obstacle for Batman. The hero's usual strategies, often reliant on his superior technology and financial might, are rendered ineffective against an adversary who now holds those very advantages. Furthermore, the Absolute Joker's training with the League of Shadows elevates him to a level of physical and tactical competence that surpasses many traditional iterations of the character. This makes him not only a financial powerhouse, but also a formidable physical threat, capable of challenging Batman on multiple fronts. This unprecedented power imbalance, where the Joker wields both immense wealth and elite training against an underdog Batman, makes him a more significant and challenging antagonist than perhaps any other Joker iteration across the multiverse. Batman's struggle against this seemingly insurmountable foe, relying on his core skills and unwavering determination, defines the central conflict of the Absolute Batman universe. The Absolute Joker's presence in the Absolute Batman universe is not a fleeting threat, but rather a carefully constructed, long-term menace. His storyline is being deliberately built up, with subtle hints and teases woven throughout the early issues of Absolute Batman, creating a sense of anticipation for his full emergence as a major antagonist. While he made a brief cameo in the debut issue and a more significant appearance in issue number 6, the creators have indicated that the true depth of his character and his overarching plans for Gotham will not be fully revealed until later in the series, around issues number 13 or 14. This gradual unveiling suggests a complex and far-reaching vision of malevolence that extends beyond immediate acts of chaos. The horrifying revelation of his life-draining activities in issue number 6 hints at a potential long-term strategy driven by a desire for extended life, or even immortality. This pursuit could fuel his actions and influence his plans for Gotham, potentially involving further exploitation of the innocent and vulnerable. Furthermore, his command to summon Bane at the end of the first arc strongly indicates a multi-phase strategy involving a network of villains under his control. Bane's introduction suggests a potential physical confrontation with Batman, or a calculated takeover of Gotham's criminal underworld orchestrated by the Joker from the shadows. Given his immense wealth, the Absolute Joker possesses the means to systematically corrupt and control Gotham in ways that the traditional Joker could only fantasize about. He could leverage his financial power to manipulate political systems, control vital infrastructure, and exert influence over the media, bending the city to his will in a more insidious and pervasive manner. The mention of his ownership of Arc-M further suggests a potential control over Gotham's criminal justice system, allowing him to manipulate the very institutions designed to contain him. The writer of Absolute Batman has even teased that the Absolute Joker will challenge Batman in ways bigger than anything we've seen before, hinting at a scale of threat and complexity that surpasses previous Joker storylines. This long-term vision of malevolence, coupled with his unique power set, positions the Absolute Joker as a truly ultimate villain with the potential to reshape Gotham in his own twisted image. The Absolute Batman universe is fundamentally defined by the pervasive influence of Darkseid's energy, creating a reality that is inherently darker, more challenging, and where heroes are often outmatched underdogs. In this world where evil holds a dominant position and heroism is a struggle against overwhelming odds, the Absolute Joker emerges not just as a reimagined villain, but as a perfect embodiment of this twisted reality. His unique characteristics, his immense wealth, chilling silence, strategic manipulation, and horrifying methods are all amplified and contextualized by the Darkseid-influenced nature of this universe. His ruthless pursuit of power and vitality through the exploitation of the innocent, particularly the life-draining of infants, aligns perfectly with a universe where darkness thrives and morality is seemingly inverted. His cold and calculated demeanor, devoid of the traditional Joker's manic glee, reflects a potential absence of conventional morality in this reality shaped by a tyrannical force. Furthermore, his position as a wealthy elite oppressing a working-class hero mirrors the stark power imbalances that might exist in a world subtly controlled by a being like Darkseid. The Absolute Joker's existence as a billionaire industrialist who commits monstrous acts embodies a profound corruption of societal power, a theme that resonates deeply within a universe forged by a tyrannical entity. He represents the terrifying potential for absolute power to be wielded for the most selfish and horrific ends in a world where hope is a constant struggle. In this context, the Absolute Joker is not merely an anomaly but a natural, albeit extreme, consequence of his environment. He stands as the antithesis of everything Absolute Batman strives to achieve in a world where heroism is an uphill battle against overwhelming odds. Therefore, the Absolute Joker is not just a reimagined villain, he is the ultimate villain of the Absolute Batman universe, a perfect embodiment of its dark and inverted nature.
Now, Wonder Woman, being a warrior-bound Amazon, sometimes daughter of Zeus, is one tough lady, and as you'd expect, a good chunk of her opponents are equally, if not more, physically intimidating and pack one heck of a punch. And then there's Dr. Psycho. Dr. Psycho is not physically intimidating at all. He is 3'9" with no kind of super strength. But what Dr. Psycho lacks in physicality, he makes up for in being absolutely psychotic, but also one of the strongest telepaths on the planet. Psycho can match up to Martian Manhunter in terms of his telepathic prowess, and can control multiple different minds with his powers at the same time. On top of that, he is just so incredibly sadistic. When combined with that absolute power, he can cause a bad day for even someone as capable as Wonder Woman. And before we move on, I'm curious, who are your favorite underappreciated villains in not just comics, but in any form of media? Let me know down in the comments below. But next up on the docket for today is Lord Deathman. The Japanese crime boss known as Lord Deathman has battled Batman both in American comics and in Japanese manga, using his powers to seemingly overcome death itself, able to rise from the grave no matter what his injuries are. In his first appearance in Batman 180 in May 1966, he passed away 3 times using a yogi technique to appear passed away before the final conflict, which saw him actually get struck by lightning and go on to the pearly gates. But since then, he has actually gained the real power to come back from the grave, but at the cost of having a bare-boned skull for a head. His regenerative abilities are so powerful that his fluids are used to create the infamous Lazarus pits that Ra's al Ghul uses to stay young and immortal. One of the first ways Batman defeated Lord Deathman with his new powers is honestly a little out of character for the Crusader. He threw Lord Deathman off of a building into the path of an armored car, which took the criminal down just long enough for Catwoman to lock him in a safe, and then he was shot out into space, and he still somehow came back. Next up is Rogal Zar. Rogal Zar is basically an alien warlord who was actually created by the papa of Superman, Jor-El. Rogal was responsible for destroying Krypton along with Empress Gandello of the Trillium Collective. He went on to later invade the Fortress of Solitude, and he destroyed the shrunken Kryptonian city of Kandor. Now, following a series of battles with Superman and Supergirl, the pair were only able to come out on top when the Girl of Steel used a Phantom Zone projector to send Zar to the Phantom Zone. Now, all of that is pretty impressive, but what really sold a lot of people on his actual raw power was later on, when Rogal escaped from the Phantom Zone, leading an army of criminals, including General Zod, who then turned on him. He did battle with Superman, Supergirl, General Zod, John Kent, and even Crypto the dog, all at the same time, until the Thanagarians showed up and put Zar in permanent stasis. Clifford Smek was a participant in a government experiment which caused him to tap into the quantum field, which allowed him to then manipulate dark matter. Now, we have no idea what that really means because we don't even really know what dark matter is, but in DC Comics, the dark matter in Major Force's body allows him to do incredible things like absorb energy, fly, regenerate, and even create light constructs like a Green Lantern can. Another side effect of all this concentrated energy inside of him means that he will go off like a nuclear boom boom if he is cut. That on its own is a huge power boost, simply because now, as a result, most superheroes can't even risk fighting Major Force, just in case they cut him. But then, on top of that, even if he does go off, ripping apart his own body on an atomic level, the dark matter that he controls will just put Major Force back together again. And that's not even everything. Not only is Major Force a physical threat, but he is also, just to top it off, a psychological genius. Simply by talking to the Green Lantern Kyle Rayner, Major Force convinced the superhero to give up his own power ring, the source of his power, and one of the most dangerous things in the universe. Prometheus is going to be up next on our list today, and heroes and villains with no powers always seem to be some of the most powerful. It's kind of strange. Prometheus, after seeing his criminal parents pass away at the hands of the police, he vows a vendetta on any form of justice, a vendetta that would push him to be able to defeat the entire Justice League single-handedly. He shot the Martian Manhunter with a dart that turned his powers against him and set him on fire. He infected Steel's armor with a computer virus which commanded the suit to damage the Watchtower. He hypnotized the Huntress into unconsciousness, attacked Green Lantern with a neural chaff that rendered his ring useless, Metropolis, he trapped the angel Zariel in limbo, tricked the Flash into believing that he had planted motion-sensitive devices that would just go off if the Flash used his powers, and he defeated Batman in hand-to-hand combat, which is nuts. His origin is very similar to Batman's. After his parents were dispatched from the mortal plane, he would travel the globe training and becoming the ultimate combat machine. But he also attended all the top universities, learning as much as he could. He eventually set up a base in the Ghost Zone, and from here he built an armor that could download information on any opponent's fighting style, kind of reminiscent of Taskmaster's ability from Marvel Comics. He is kind of crazy capable, but his vendetta on any kind of justice, plus his Batman likeness, just kind of makes him a little weird to me. Next up, we got Tattooed Man. Abel Tarrant was a sailor who discovered a strange chemical that could bring drawings to life. Now, realizing the potential this chemical had, he inked his entire body with it and became the supervillain Tattooed Man. While performing crimes, his ink actually comes to life to attack his enemies. Over the years, he has fought superheroes with tattoos of tigers, cars, ships, monsters, bears, fire, planes, and dinosaurs. He can even use a tattoo of wings to give himself the ability to fly. Tattoo Man has never been considered a super serious threat, but I think he should be, because he is only limited by his imagination. There is nothing stopping him from creating a tattoo of a nuclear boom boom or even a black hole. If he inked kryptonite onto his body, there's no reason that he couldn't take down Superman if he wanted to. Next up today is Dr. Sivana. It's almost ironic that some of the biggest and the strongest superheroes find their adversaries in the form of kind of creepy, somewhat old, bald men. Superman has Lex Luthor, who isn't old, but he is bald. And then for Shazam, he's got Dr. Sivana, who is indeed both old and bald. Sivana is not the kind of guy who's going to be engaging in a battle of fisticuffs, but that's fine because his strength is in the brain department. The villain doesn't have a ton of monumental feats, but one of his best comes to us in the Multiversity Thunderworld Adventures. In the opening pages of this comic, Sivana literally attacks the Rock of Eternity, which is the source of Shazam's powers and the home base for the wizard Shazam. This place has never ever been attacked for an eternity, and Sivana attacked it with a bigger Rock of Eternity, which is weird. He had his own Shazam-like team of superpowered children and his own multiversal duplicates helping him along. He manages to take the wizard Shazam prisoner and mine the rock for its own power, granting himself his own monstrous Shazam-like form, and it's crazy. Now, with a name like Psycho Pirate, it's easy to not take this villain too seriously, but Roger Hayden is quite the capable guy. Hayden wears a faceplate called the Medusa Mask, which can control the emotions of anyone nearby, and he staunchly believed that this was his ticket to riches and power. When heroes or the police try to stop his crime sprees, Psycho Pirate just uses his mask to overwhelm his opponents with shame, guilt, depression, or any other number of emotions. He can also make a person develop a phobia of anything he wants them to be afraid of. Like, in his debut issue, he made Dr. Fate, one of the most powerful magic users in DC Comics, develop Citophobia, aka the fear of food. And then he attacked Fate with a pizza. That's amazing! Psycho Pirate has played a huge part in some of the biggest DC comics ever, including Crisis on Infinite Earths and Infinite Crisis. If you needed more proof, Amanda Waller, the head of the Task Force X program, aka the Suicide Squad, has claimed that Psycho Pirate is one of the scariest beings in the universe, calling him, quote, a man who could make gods go mad, a man who could make the mad gods sane again. And in our second place today is Extant. Henry Hall, the brother of Donald Hall, aka Dove, started his comic book life as Hawk, being empowered alongside his brother by a Lord of Chaos and a Lord of Order who had fallen in love. Now, Henry represented chaos. Hawk and Dove together were vigilantes and were even part of the Teen Titans for a time. After the Crisis on Infinite Earths, however, in a dystopian near future that was home to a time-traveling hero called Wave Rider, Henry had become an oppressive tyrant named Monarch who ended up going back in time and fighting the modern-day heroes before he was wiped out by the Henry of the present day. I hope you can follow that because it was kind of hard for me to follow when I read it. Present-day Henry then took up the Monarch title and mantle in the modern day, becoming a villain. Now, eventually, Monarch stole the time powers from Wave Rider and then allied himself with Parallax, aka the corrupted Hal Jordan, and he took on the new villain name of Extant. While he was the front for Parallax's scheme to recreate the multiverse using alternate timelines, he tried tried to alter time to give himself an entire army of superheroes and found himself battling all the greatest members of the JSA. An extent tore through them all like they were a joke, and he even used his temporal powers to age up the members of the JSA that he didn't just straight up send to the afterlife. And lastly today, I think anyone who hasn't heard of this villain before would be forgiven. When you think of the most fearsome villains, specifically the villains of Captain Marvel, otherwise known as Shazam, you may not first think about the 7-inch long sentient worm from Venus known as Mr. Mind. This diabolically evil mind-controlling worm, after the events of Infinite Crisis, would cocoon himself and then emerge as a massive monstrosity capable of manipulating reality, consuming universes, and traveling through time and space. He was described as, quote, eating years and events from this universe's history, altering the Earth with every flap of his giant wings. It took a combined effort from Booster Gold, Supernova, and Skeets to defeat Mr. Mind by trapping him inside Skeets' shell, which was fortified by the Suspendium. Then, Booster Gold threw Skeets through time with the help of Supernova to the day that he was first discovered on Earth by Dr. Sivana, and then he's trapped in a time loop forever. So they didn't actually end him or defeat him, they just trapped him. This all-powerful, mind-controlling 7-inch long worm.
Number 10, Amanda Waller. She doesn't even have superpowers, but she is a power all on her own. Nicknamed the Wall, she is a government official who will do anything in the name of national security. I'm talking breaking the rules, killing people, even killing innocent people. She is the commander of Task Force X, aka Suicide Squad, a supervillain team that performs special operations under her command. She has a brilliant tactical mind and is ruthless and disciplined, bending supervillains to her will to get her work done, but she's not afraid to get her hands dirty. She once even uncovered Batman's secret identity. She might not be the deadliest DC villain by a pretty wide margin, but there are a whole host of DC villains that would say she's plenty deadly. It's this ability to get superpowered villains to do her dirty work that earns her this spot on our list. Number 9, Catwoman. Coming straight from the heart of Gotham City, Selina Kyle has had a varied origin, but she always ends up becoming Catwoman. In more recent years, she shows up more as a helper to Batman than as an enemy, but she is one of Batman's original villains, and for good reason. She is in peak physical condition and a nimble acrobat as well as master thief, sometimes even using literal cats to help her in her schemes. She might not have super strength or energy manipulation, but she is still a deadly foe, a skilled martial artist, stealth expert, and has considerable skill with weapons, including firearms and swords. Number 8, Cheetah. A much more intimidating cat, Cheetah has had a bit of a legacy, and there are a few different versions of the character. The most recent iteration of Cheetah is Barbara Minerva, who just recently appeared in DC's Wonder Woman 1984. A skilled archaeologist and linguist, she has a keen interest in the lost culture of the Amazons, and she actually helped Wonder Woman learn English when she first came to the United States. Dr. Minerva has made a pact with a god, transforming her into the cheetah with superhuman speed and all the deadly attributes of a feline. She battles with the inner turmoil of resisting her animalistic rage and predatory fury, and was once friends with Wonder Woman, at least in her human form. She was once busted out of jail by the crime syndicate and recruited onto their team. After a while, she led her own team known as the Menagerie, who terrorized New York from their hideout in Central Park. Number 7, Punchline. Also called Alexis K, she is the Joker's new right-hand woman, as Harley has a lot going on right now and the two aren't really on speaking terms. She was a student at Snyder College and encountered the Joker while on a field trip to a TV studio. Joker hijacked the studio and Alexis was forced at gunpoint to act as the newsreader, delivering Joker's message to the citizens of Gotham. After this encounter, she became obsessed, starting a podcast about the Joker and poisoning the people around her to try and get his attention. She eventually kills her college dean, proving herself to the Joker, who taught her how to create a modified form of his Joker venom. Link in the script there. She goes on to help Joker in his war against Batman, eventually having an epic showdown against Harley Quinn and Batman. She wields a couple of daggers and holds her own well against Catwoman and Harley. Number 6, Silver Banshee. First appearing in Action Comics number 595, Silver Banshee is a villain with sonic powers who frequently goes up against Superman. She was once insanely powerful, but has sort of been dumbed down a bit over the years, That's just how it goes with these supervillains sometimes. But in her youth, she was dragged into the netherworld during a supernatural conflict as family stuff and granted superpowers by a creature called the Crone. She is initially controlled by the powers like a curse, but later overcomes it with the help of Supergirl. They become fast friends and get to know each other pretty well. The two later hang out in a bar together and it's totally lit. They're having a great time until her dad, Black Banshee, shows up. Luckily, the two of them are able to defeat Black Banshee together. Silver Banshee is known for her ability to learn language instantly, and more importantly, this crazy power to just like make people die by saying their name. It's sort of like the Black Canary's canary cry, except the Banshee version, and it instantly kills you. Number 5. Blackfire. Blackfire is the older sister of Starfire from the Teen Titans. She often appears as an adversary of the Titans and is extremely powerful, outmatching the already astounding Starfire in battle. She can absorb ultraviolet radiation and transform it into deadly bolts she calls black bolts, and can even change radiation into energy, giving her superhuman strength and endurance. She is especially powerful, capable of interstellar travel and flight in space. Kind of the same thing. She appears in Red Hood and the Outlaws number 11, where she fights alongside her sister and takes down the Blight after they capture Roy Harper. It's an epic team up and a great reunion for the two sisters. Number 4. Mary, Queen of Blood. Mary Seward is the Queen of Blood, appearing in House of Mystery number 290 in 1981. She once had a lover named Andrew Bennett, a decorated nobleman who was bitten and turned into a vampire. Mary begged Andrew to bite her as well, hoping that the two could spend eternity together. However, Andrew resists the vampiric bloodlust while Mary embraces it and becomes a ruthless killer. She forms a cult called the Blood Red Moon, and Andrew hunts her across the centuries trying to stop her. She once turned an entire temple of monks into vampires, but they rather impressively resist the bloodlust through mindfulness and meditation. She has a crazy host of powerful abilities, including psychokinesis, transformation, regeneration, superhuman strength, not to mention immortality. As long as she has a steady supply of blood, she is extremely powerful, and I'm sure it's easy for her to get more. Number 3. Killer Frost. Killer Frost is just a classic deadly female villain, an icy-hearted femme fatale who will literally suck the life out of you in a heartless attack. There have been multiple iterations of Frost, always iconic and always super powerful, having once even sold her soul to become more powerful. She has been kidnapped and forced to work on the Suicide Squad, and once even worked alongside Batman. Caitlin Snow is the newest Frost, a scientist who is tricked by Hive and made to die in a staged accident, but she instead survives and gains her ice-based powers. She is not made of ice, but instead generates organic ice-like cells that make up her entire genetic makeup. She is a heat vampire, absorbing the body heat of others to kill them. Number 2. Enchantress. Also known as June Moon, Enchantress gained her powers from an immensely powerful being and almost immediately winds up battling against Supergirl. She later joins the Suicide Squad as Amanda Waller agrees to help her control her evil Enchantress side. She can manipulate energy, heal, and even teleport. She once took on Wonder Woman, Cyborg, and Superman all at once, and has defeated other villains as well. Her powers have gotten kind of erratic and unpredictable since June Moon and Enchantress became separated from one another, but she has still demonstrated some impressive raw power in her villainous career. She is capable of flight, necromancy, and possession, elemental control, and even resurrection, but only if the corpse is fresh. If it's not though, she can always use the necromancy. Number 1. Evil Supergirl. Lex Luthor had an evil scheme that basically caused all of this. He created a black kryptonite energy ray, which he used on Supergirl, hoping to corrupt her. Instead though, the ray generated a second dark version of Supergirl. This dark version had similar memories and experiences, but believed that she was sent to Earth to kill Superman. And as you can imagine, she's crazy powerful. She goes on a rampage using her Kryptonian powers, causing tons of damage, and even taking down Black Canary and the Flash before finally facing off in an epic battle with Superman and Wonder Woman. Evil Supergirl is likely one of the most powerful villains ever, and it's actually Wonder Woman that brings her down in the end, catching both versions of Supergirl in her lasso and merging them together back into one.
Coming in at number 10, we are starting with Zoom. This is starting off with an obvious choice. Eobard Thawne, also known as the Reverse Flash, or Zoom, is the arch nemesis of Barry Allen and has done a great job at keeping the Scarlet Speedster on his toes. Having worshipped the Flash more than anybody, even going as far as to recreate the reaction that gave Barry his powers, and having an operation done so that he could look like Barry Allen, Thawne wanted nothing more than to meet and befriend his hero. His killing tendency unfortunately came up not too long after that, when he killed the cashier at the Flash Museum so he could use the holy grail of all Flash memorabilia, the Cosmic Treadmill, so he could travel back in time to meet his hero. Unfortunately, there was a miscalculation and he ended up appearing several years after Allen's death. Distraught and upset, Thawne escaped to the Flash Museum to get some answers, only to find out that he was destined to become the Flash's greatest nemesis, Zoom. Needless to say, he did not take that news very well, and this set him down on his dark path. Since then, Thawne has done everything in his power to torment the Flash, going as far as killing his mother and fiancé and so much more. Talk about a quick temper. Number 9 is Dr. Destiny. John Dee was a pretty run-of-the-mill villain for the Justice League by creating tech that was more advanced than most people had ever seen, and thanks to this tech he was able to capture Green Lantern and set traps left and right for the Justice League. However, all this changed after he created the Materiopticon, which allowed him to manipulate and alter reality. He was eventually stopped by the Justice League by making him unable to dream, which in turn robbed him of his powers and drove him even deeper into insanity. Dee also appeared with a much darker reboot in Neil Gaiman's Sandman, where he is seen using his Materiopticon to take over a 24-hour diner to fulfill his sadistic desires and purposes. Number 8, Trigon. Now, I understand that teenage angst is a thing and not having a good relationship with your daughter isn't exactly a crime, but Trigon kinda takes that a little bit too far and ends up being the arch enemy of Raven from Teen Titans. Originally the ruler of an unknown alien planet, Trigon was able to absorb the power of the Heart of Darkness, which granted him an insane amount of power, allowing him to kill the Divine once and for all. Not only are his powers something to marvel, but just look at him. His terrifying demonic appearance already makes him someone that I do not want to mess with. However, I feel I could definitely take that sweater vest wearing Trigon from Teen Titans Go. Number 7, Murmur. Being a fairly new member of the Flash's Rogues, Murmur doesn't really have many appearances in the comics, but by no means does that make him any less terrifying. Dr. Michael Amaro was once a very successful and respected surgeon, until one day he could no longer take the voices in his head caused by his schizophrenia, and decided that a killing spree was the only way to keep them at bay. This spree spread through Central City and Keystone City until he was finally detained by the police with the help of the Flash. With an incredible understanding of human physiology thanks to his many years as a surgeon and his unique blood type unlike anyone has ever seen, he can't be killed by any lethal injections, this villain is not someone you should mess with. Not to mention, he also cut out his own tongue and sewed his mouth shut. Number 6, Necron. Lord of the Unliving and one of the most powerful beings in the universe, Necron is a manifestation of death and the opposing force of all life itself. Before becoming the Lord of Unliving, we're not entirely sure what or where Necron was. Rumors have circulated that Necron is darkness itself, existing before life entirely, and then others say he was created by the darkness as his protector. First appearing in Tales of the Green Lantern Corps number 2 in 1981, Necron's most terrifying moment was his triumphant return in Blackest Night when he formed the Black Lanterns Corps, who I'll be touching on a little bit later. Thanks to the power of those Black Power Rings and the Black Lantern Central Power Battery, Necron was able to begin complete and utter devastation to the world during this time. The only thing that was able to take him down was Hal Jordan and the White Lanterns, who together overpowered Necron by resurrecting the Black Hand, which in turn severs his link with the living plane. With this link gone, his body is completely destroyed and the Blackest Night is over. Number 5, Dr. Death. Now, if that name doesn't already scare you, then hold on to your hats because this villain is truly something. Originally a scientist working for Wayne Enterprises, Dr. Carl Helfern was working on a nanomedicine to try and create a serum to make human bones harden upon impact to prevent breakage. Unfortunately, this project failed and was a large reason that led to Helfern's slow descent into insanity, the other reasons being his son's death and the loss of his job at Wayne Enterprises. Thanks to a later partnership with Edward Digma, a breakthrough was discovered, and that got the entire process working again, and set him on his path down to, his villain side. With the success of his formula, Helfern injected it into himself, granting him superhuman strength and a regeneration ability. Eventually taking the name Dr. Death, Helfern kills his research group by injecting them with the failed formula which causes their bone to grow uncontrollably and then rip them apart from the inside out. Dr. Death was eventually and thankfully stopped by Batman, who incapacitated the villain by breaking his bones in such a way that they would grow back irregularly. The sheer pressure and uncomfortability of his new physique led to Helfern's death, as his struggle against his own skeleton caused his skull to cave in and crush his brains. Number 4, Crib. Now, despite sounding like a lovely place to keep your baby, this member of the Sinestro Corp is far from that. She targets Green Lantern members who have recently had children, then she'll secrete a poison liquid from her breast to subdue their parents, and then have them watch with their dying breaths as she takes their children and tosses them into her crib-like hunchback. As the parents die, she leaves them claiming she'll raise them as her own as orphans of the Green Lantern Corps. Now, not only is that terrifying, but it's also never really explained why, which, the mystery in that just makes it all the more unsettling. Thankfully, Crib is subdued by Kyle Rayner and is sent to Zamaron to have the Zamarans rehabilitate her. However, it's confirmed later that the rehabilitation technique does not really work on her at all. I guess some aliens just can't be helped. Number 3, Black Hand. William Hand, aka Black Hand, was chosen to be the physical embodiment of death by Guardian Scar, and after killing himself and becoming reanimated, he becomes the leader of the Black Lantern Corps during the Blackest Night. See, I told you we'd circle back. During the Blackest Night, Hand murders each member of his family before killing himself and receiving the Black Lantern ring. With this ring, Black Hand was able to reanimate some of DC's most famous and powerful heroes such as Batman and Superman and so many more. Alongside Necron, Black Hand battles against the heroes of Earth and the Lantern Corps. As stated before, Hand is defeated by Hal Jordan and the White Lanterns after it is revealed that he is Necron's link to the living plane. After he's brought back to life and Necron's defeated, he is then taken by the Indigo tribe, very dazed and confused, and they're set on helping him alter his worldviews, and it seems like it worked. Number 2, Jonathan Crane, aka the Scarecrow. Now, this brilliant psychologist turned supervillain is one of the most terrifying and layered villains in the DC universe. Crane lost his credibility as a psychologist after an experiment gone wrong when he took everything a little bit too far, and then that began his descent into madness. Taking up the name Scarecrow, he uses his immense knowledge of fear and anxiety to mess with his victims and seals the deal with his infamous fear toxin to torture them. When inhaled, this toxin forces the victim to hallucinate and imagine their own worst fear as if it was reality. Just the thought of that completely terrifies me, and that's why I placed him so high on this list. I can't even think about it. And finally, number 1, the Joker. You probably guessed it, but obviously the most terrifying DC villain in my opinion is the Joker. The insane clown prince of crime has been around since the beginning of Batman and is still his arch nemesis. He commits crime for no reason other than his desire to show people how meaningless life is through pain, death, and his signature methods of torture. Constantly flipping between a harmless trickster and a mass murderer, the Joker's mindset is impossible to pinpoint, which makes him all the more terrifying. He seemingly has no morals, willing to go as far as killing Robin, crippling Batgirl, and doing whatever it takes to get the job done, even if it means losing someone on his side. Although there's a lot of mystery around his origins, it is known that he is the way he is because of a chemical accident that ruined his body and mind. Now, despite the Joker being such a prominent villain in the Batman universe, there's so little known about him, and when new information pops up about him, it just makes him all the more twisted and terrifying. Look, I'm all for practical jokes and committing to a bit, but he just takes it way too far.